Welcome to Achievers. My name is Demlock, and this is my video walkthrough for the Business Master achievement in Monopoly Deal on Xbox One. For this achievement, we will need to use the Double the Rent card to charge double the rent on a completed blue property with both a house and a hotel. I found a fair few guides for this achievement list this as being one of the hardest achievements to get, and lists that you could be spending hours and hours trying to complete it using the normal method. The quickest way is just to have a friend help you with multiplayer, but this strategy should help you get the achievement much quicker in single player. I personally unlocked it after about 2 games doing this strategy. After playing the game all day trying to get this achievement, I'd noticed 2 things that inspired this strategy. Firstly, the very easy AI does not use most action cards. Secondly, they always seem to get the house and the hotel cards. It took ages for them to complete a single set, but once they did, they would almost always immediately put down the house and the hotel. At this point, I knew I didn't have them in play, and I would just restart the game. But this took about 20 or 30 minutes before it actually came up. There should only be 2 hotels and 3 houses in the game, based off the real-life physical deck. But based off what I'm seeing, I think there's actually only 1 hotel and 2 houses. Once they're used, they are permanently out of play. So our solution's simple. We're just going to trick our opponent into building the property set for us instead. It's a lot easier to force our opponent to build a property set than to do it ourselves. Start by setting a new local gamer against a very easy AI. I'm skipping my first game here. I made the mistake of letting the AI build another set early, and then they used their hotel on that one. Keep restarting until you get double the rent and a blue-green rent card. We don't want a rainbow card. We can't use those with double the rent, so make sure it's a green and a blue card. And with my luck, I see my first hotel in quite a few dozen games. I was tempted to try to build the set again myself, but my patience was rewarded. Okay, so we got a blue property, that's good. But we don't need to have these cards in our starting hand, as we can't remove these from play. So even if our opponent does get these, that's okay for us. Now, you could just wait to be dealt these cards, but there is a chance your opponent will get them, and they'll just bank them and remove them from play. So if you do go that route, keep an eye out. If you see your opponent bank 2 double the rent or 2 green cards, restart the game, as you can't get this achievement in that run. There we go, both cards. Make sure it's the blue-green rent card. Again, we can't use the rainbow rent card, so those are useless for us. Now, I'm going to be employing 2 main kinds of actions until I'm ready to build the set, so to speak. Firstly, I'm going to try to remove as many unwanted cards from play as possible. Secondly, I'm going to be keeping my hand full, so that I can discard cards that I want my opponent to have. Please note that I'm throwing out a lot of property cards. In retrospect, it's a better idea just to place them down, but make sure you don't build full sets. You can build 1 set, but if you build a second, stealing the blue set from the opponent at the end is actually going to complete your 3 sets, and you're going to win the game before you can actually charge rent on it. Use pass goes whenever possible. Our objective is to go through the deck as quickly as possible, and this is your best way about it. A wild rent card. Completely useless for this achievement, but to save time, I'm going to bank them to remove them from play. Discard time. I choose a property. In retrospect, I'd keep the properties and discard unneeded action cards or money instead. And my opponent puts down a blue straight away. We need this to happen before we can force them to build the set, so this is great. Regardless, your opponent should play a blue card eventually, and I found they tend to fill up the board before they start building sets. Another pass go. In real life, me and my friends have a joke about how many of these you inevitably get. They seem to just come one after the other. Another 2 properties. Still nothing useful, but it is still early in the game. Banking another rainbow rent card. We can't use these, so the best thing to do for me is just to remove them from play. The same applies to the just say no's. A very easy opponent will never actually take an action that lets you use these cards, so regardless, the best thing to do versus a very easy AI is just to bank them. Opponent plays another single property and a pass go. Pass go seems to be the only action cards that the opponents will use, except for placing houses and hotels. And another property. And two more properties that I send straight back to the deck. As we can see, the opponent's basically going to place one property of each set before they actually start trying to build up sets. They seem to do this every game. Another red card. We don't need this one, so I'm immediately going to bank it and remove it from play. May as well bank some money while I'm at it. Doesn't really matter. You won't ever actually have to pay money to a very easy opponent. And I see this a lot too. The very easy opponent will play a single turn, and they'll just pass on it. Another double the rent card. We only need one for this, so just bank it. You also can't use two with the same rent card, which kind of sucks. You can in the real life game. But then again, you can also use them with the rainbow cards as well. Here we have a good example of the very easy opponent not wanting to build sets. They could build the blue set now, but their coding tells them not to, so they place the wild in an empty slot. Another rent cards to bank. You could always discard these, even if the opponent picks it up. Very easy opponents don't use rent cards. This first gave me a bit of a scare. If your opponent builds a different set first, they might waste the house and the hotel on it. But a utility or a station set is fine. You can't actually put houses or hotels on utility sets, so these are the best ones for your opponent to build early game if you don't get them to build the blue in time. Something else, another reason I'm discarding mostly from the right is as a redundancy. All your properties go on the right side, so by discarding from the right, I'm making sure I don't accidentally discard any of the cards I need from the left side. Force deal, awesome. We'll need this for later. To force your opponent to build the blue set, we will need to give them a blue card using a forced deal card. Keep two as a backup, just in case we miraculously need to feed the opponent both blue cards. It shouldn't happen, but until the opponent has a blue card down, it is always possible. And another pass go. And a deal breaker. We'll need this to steal our blue set later. Now, there are only two in the game, but I always seem to get one of them. So this isn't really unexpected. You'll also see I picked up a wild card. And now, I could use this as my blue, but there are two concerns. Firstly, I don't know that my opponent will actually put it down on the blue set on their end. And secondly, if the blue set is completed with only rainbow wildcards, it becomes completely useless. You can't charge rent on a set made up entirely of rainbow wildcards. Okay, so now I'm worried my opponent is going to build another set. Even if they don't put the hotel down on it, two sets means the blue set would make three. So by making them build a blue set, I would effectively lose the game. A slight deal, this is just what I wanted. I could use this to block my opponent from building a yellow set by taking their second yellow card, and that's exactly what I do. A house and a blue card. We're in business. Place the blue property down as soon as you have it. Once your opponent also has a blue property down, we want to give them ours with a forced deal. This forces them to build the blue property set and tricks them into putting down a house and a hotel. Pick whatever other card you want from their hand. Try and choose one that blocks the set. If I didn't have that spy deal, I would have stolen their yellow, but it doesn't seem to matter now, so I just picked the purple. Now we just wait for our opponent to build up our blue set for us. We won't need the house card, but I always seem to get one. I'm assuming at this point that my opponent has the other. I pick up my second house card. I'm worried my opponent doesn't have one now. There should still be 3 in the deck, but I'm suspicious that this version only uses 2. I'm going to discard one of my house cards so that it might be picked up by my opponent. Notice that I keep one. If I get super lucky and pick up a hotel, I can immediately steal the blue set back and unlock my achievement. And again, I'm discarding excess rent cards. You'll see I draw a second blue-green rent card. You'll only need one. Bank the other. Passing Go gives me another 2 property cards. This is actually what we want now. We need our opponent to pick up the house and the hotel cards, so removing property cards is the optimal move for us. Don't throw out rainbow wild cards. We don't want our opponent getting a hold of these. At this stage, we'll see our opponent passing a lot, on the verge of building their 3rd set. I haven't really tested it, so it might be worth considering that they are holding back because I simply don't have any sets. If you're building properties up and you find that they are building their sets a lot quicker, try my approach of not having any properties and see how it goes. Now, I use a debt collector for the lols, but don't really use these. It's a waste of time. You can just bank them. Nothing much left to do here, but wait for our opponent to do our bidding. So I go through a few turns. Just watch their other sets and break up what you can. And our opponent puts down the house card. I'm willing to bet they've actually just picked up the one that we discarded. And our hotel, we're in business. At this stage, we only need 3 more cards, and I have all of them. The blue-green rent card, the double the rent card, and a deal breaker. Use your deal breaker and steal their blue set. We now have a blue set with a hotel on it. Use the rent card. Make sure you do select the blue in case you have green as well. And make sure that you double the rent. You need 2 actions to do this. If you only have 1 left after the deal breaker, wait until the next turn. And that's it. Double the rent charged on a blue property set with a hotel on it, earning us the Business Master achievement for a whopping 200 gamer score. Hopefully you got as lucky as I did. I do think I got a bit lucky in how my hand was drawn. And remember that if you're unlucky enough to draw a hotel and no houses, you can always return the hotel to the deck by discarding it, giving your opponent another chance of drawing it. In total, it took me about half an hour to get this achievement using this strategy, versus the hours and hours of not coming close using the other guides I'd found online. Hopefully this helps others out there, and as always, happy hunting.